Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Darian and today we're going to do another quarterly wrap-up. So it's that time again. This year, I feel like everyone is saying this, but this year is flying by. I can't believe, well, when I'm filming this, it's July. I can't believe it, but I'm going to be wrapping up April, May, and June, otherwise known as the second quarter of 2025. Also, yes, I did just get a haircut. Thank you for noticing. I don't know if actually it looks much different, but it feels a lot better. Let me tell you that. But yeah, we're going to be talking about how my reading went in April, May, and June. I'll be giving you all the stats as well as my 3 favorite and 3 least favorite books that I read in that quarter. So let's get into it. So I have my trusty spreadsheet in front of me to give you all the information. So in the second quarter of 2025, I read a total of 19 books. That's not great. I'm not super happy with that, but you know what? I mean, definitely April was kind of, I don't remember why, but I didn't read much in April. But yeah, 19 books. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I wish I read more, but it's fine. I read a total of 6,681 pages. I listened to 68 hours exactly. Wow. I reread 1 book. Did I read it also for the first time in those 3 months? Maybe. And yeah, so I read 4 of those books in April, 7 in May, and 8 in June. So yeah, May and June were pretty good. It was April that was the rough month for me. According to my spreadsheet, my average rating was 4.1. I don't know if that's completely accurate because of my spreadsheet, I only use like 0.5 ratings and I've been using 0.25 ratings recently. So it's around 4.1. And I did DNF 1 book, but I do count those in my total read for the year because I spend time with those books. So I count them. So in terms of my ratings, I gave 2 2.5 stars, 1 3-star, 1 3.5, 7 4 stars. That's pretty good. 2 4.5, 5 5. Wow. Well, 5 5 stars. 2 of those were the same book, but it's fine. And then 1 I didn't rate because I DNF'd it. In terms of genres, I read 2 dystopian books, 7 fantasy books, 1 historical, 4 lit fic, 1 mystery, and 3 romance, and 1 sci-fi. I don't remember what, I know what one of the dystopian books was, but what was the other one? Anyway. In terms of the format, I read 1 manga, 16 novels, and 2 novellas. And in terms of the sources I read from, I listened to 6 audiobooks and 13 physical books. I had no ebooks or mixtures this month, or this quarter. I read from 3 debut authors, 8 authors that were new to me, and 8 authors that I've read from before. In terms of the audience, I read 17 adult books and 2 YA books. Wow. That's rare for me. I usually read a lot of YA, so interesting. Okay, in terms of the year the books were published, this is not in like chronological order, so bear with me for a second. It's gonna be different from the first quarterly wrap-up because a lot of those books were from 2024 since I did my Goodreads video, but we have 2 books from 2022, 5 books from 2025, 4 books from 2023, 1 book from 1955. That's definitely one of the Lord of the Rings books. 2 books from 2024, 1 from 1995, 1 from 2017, 1 from 2021, 1 from 2019, 1 from 2018. 10 of the books I read were part of a series and 9 were standalones. I feel like I read a lot from part of a series this month, or this quarter. I keep saying this month. 9 of the books were diverse in some way. 13 included LGBTQIA+ rep. 10 of the books were own voices, as far as I knew. In terms of the countries I read from, I usually track, I know you can do either like where the book is set. I usually track where the authors are from. So I read 2 books where the author is from UAE, which I believe it was the same author. 6 books from Americans. 5 books from Canadians. Yes. A lot of those were Emily Austen, but one of my goals this year was to read from less American authors, so I'm very happy with that. And then 1 from China, 1 from England, 1 from Belgium, 1 from Indonesia, 1 from Australia, and 1 from Japan. So I think that's it for my stats. So very interesting stats. I'm definitely happy about how many different countries I'm reading from and not just mostly Americans. I'm actually surprised to see how many series I've been reading from. Like in my head, it doesn't feel like I've been reading from a lot of series, but I guess I am. So let's move on and talk about the 3 best and 3 worst books that I read in the second quarter. So first we'll talk about the 3 best. So these are all 5-star books and probably will make it to my top 10 of the year, honestly. But in third place, we have Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. No one is surprised. I read this book right before I ended up going to Ottawa to meet her, and she signed it. Where is it? She signed it, hee hee. But I loved this book so much. I also, for Emily Austen's books, I've listened to all the audiobooks and I highly recommend the audiobooks. I find that they're so well done. But this book in particular is about this girl named Gilda who is a lesbian and an atheist and very much a people pleaser. So much so that she ends up going to this church thinking that they're having this like therapy group there. It turns out she ends up in this job interview to be like the receptionist at the church, and they hire her because she knows how to use a computer. So she pretends she's Catholic, and she kind of gets into some shenanigans because she's such a people pleaser. But this book also discusses a lot about mental health. Gilda's definitely dealing with depression and anxiety. She also has this obsession with death and like thinks about it constantly. So definitely trigger warnings for that. I would check the trigger warnings for all of Emily Austen's book because all of them discuss mental health in some way. But I just loved, I love her writing so much. I love the way that she discusses mental health and also the way she adds humor in her books. There's just something about them I find so comforting, even though the topics discussed are fairly dark. Like there's something about her books that just really do it for me. I love her writing so much. So I'm happy I finally read this because this was her debut novel and I'm happy I finally got to it just in time to meet her. Yay! Coming in at number 2 was The Final Strife by Sarah el-Arifi. This is the beautiful Illumicrate edition. I'm so happy I got these. But yeah, this is the first book in the Ending Fire trilogy, and it's so hard to describe these books. Essentially, you're in this fantasy world where the society is divided by the color of your blood. So if you have red blood, you are an ember and you're considered upper class. You hold all positions of power. You have the most opportunities. Then we have the blue bloods, which are called dusters. And they're like upper middle class, I would say. Like they're still highly regarded, but definitely not as much as embers. But they still definitely have more privilege than those who have clear blood, which are the ghostings. They are essentially treated as slaves. When they're born, they get their hands and tongues cut out, so they're not able to speak. They develop their own language that nobody else bothers to learn because they're so lowly regarded in society. So you're following our main character, Scylla, who has red blood but grew up among the dusters because of a resistance act that occurred when she was a baby. This resistance group of dusters broke into the Ember households and switched duster babies with Ember babies, and Scylla was one of those babies. You also follow Anur, who was another one of those babies, but she has blue blood and grew up among the Embers. And then you're following Hassa, who is a ghosting, and she's just up to her own thing. She's doing her own thing. I love the 3 perspectives in this book. In the first book, you're mainly following Scylla and Anur's perspective, and then the second book, you get more of the other characters' perspectives. I just thought this was such a unique fantasy world. I feel like I haven't read anything like this before. And I loved Sarah el-Arifi's writing. I never knew where the story was going. This also has like a trial kind of competition element in it, which I love. Love a good trial. So yeah, I loved it. I also love the characters. I love Anur, one of my favorite characters I've read in a fantasy book. She is just so endearing. And yeah, I love it. I feel like there's a lot of parallels in this world to our world today. And I mean, it's definitely, it gets gruesome. It gets pretty dark, but I loved it. So highly recommend, because I feel like this series is kind of underrated, but I loved it. And then finally, we all knew it was coming, but We Could Be Rats, my favorite book I read this quarter, my favorite book of the year. Is it my favorite book of all time? I'm still trying to figure that out. The tension between me and my Strange the Dreamer tattoo right now. I don't know. When I get a rat tattoo, it's all over. So yes, this is We Could Be Rats. This is Emily Austen's newest release. I think it came out in January, but I have read this twice. I read it once in May and once in June because I just love it so much. This book. So this book is about our main character Sigrid, who has decided to end her own life. And the book is kind of written out as her attempts to write a suicide note. So huge trigger warning in this book for suicide, depression, mental health issues, also for addiction and for sexual assault. I feel like I cannot talk about this book without stressing the trigger warnings. Please take care of yourself if you go into this book. I personally find this type of book very comforting to me because it makes me feel very seen, but I can definitely see how this type of book could trigger someone. So I just want everyone to be aware before going into this book, because I will shout from the rooftops that this is one of the best books I've ever read, but I also don't want to recommend it willy-nilly to anyone. So just consider that before you pick this book up. But yes, you're following Sigrid. She is attempting to write her suicide note, and through these notes you learn a lot about her life and also her relationship with her sister Margit. And what this book does, it takes a very interesting turn about halfway through the book that made me adore this book. Like, I was already loving it when I was reading it, but then this book takes a turn that just made me fall in love with it so much more. There's just something about Emily Austen, I don't know. I don't know. I love her so much, and it was so interesting to see her talk about her writing process and about this book as well as her other books. And this book just means a lot to me. There's so many lines. When I read it the second time, I went through it and annotated it. There's so many lines that just like really hit me. And honestly, I feel like if I had a sister, this would definitely cement this book as my favorite book of all time. But right now, it's just battling it out with Strange the Dreamer. But I love this book so much. I love it so much. Will I read it again before the end of the year? I don't know. Anything's possible. But obviously, this is my favorite book I read this quarter. Okay. So the 3 worst books I read this quarter. Now, before everyone yells at me, I was looking at my ratings that I gave this quarter, and like, according to the math, this is the 3rd worst book that I read between April and June, okay? I know everyone's gonna get mad at me, but I guess I didn't rate too many books very lowly, because this is a 3-star, okay? It's a 3-star. That's not a bad rating. So this is just according to the math, okay? Oh my god. But that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Yeah, this I found a big disappointment. If you somehow don't know, this is a prequel to the Hunger Games series. You're following Haymitch as he competes in his games. And if you know anything about the Hunger Games series, you know how this book ends. And I thought this book was trying to do way too much. I thought there were way too many cameos. They didn't feel genuine to me. They felt very fan servicey, which they probably were, but like, it just did not feel at all genuine to me. I thought the writing was very stunted in this book. I hated how we called Haymitch a rascal every 3 seconds, and I don't know, this just didn't really do anything for me, but I still gave it 3 stars because it is Suzanne Collins. It is the world of the Hunger Games. Like, it's not a bad book. I'm gonna have a good time. Air quotes on good, because I'm always gonna suffer when I read a Hunger Games book, but I was so excited to read about Haymitch and his games, and I didn't connect to any of the characters or any of the other tributes. I mean, obviously I connected to Haymitch because I already know him, but yeah, I just found this very disappointing, so it was a 3-star. But like, please remember that there's way worse books out there. I don't dislike this book, I don't hate this book, I just found it very disappointing. Okay, now that that's out of the way, this next book, I believe I gave a 2.5 star, but that was Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. I always forget this author's name for some reason, but this is a Regency romance that follows these two girls, Beth and Gwen, I think are their names. It is the, like, what is it called? You know, the season where the women are trying to find husbands? What is that called? I almost said mating season. That's not what they call it. I can't remember, but it's the season. You know what I mean? Where the young women are trying to find husbands, and Beth especially needs to find a husband because her father recently passed away and she doesn't have any brothers, so it's just her and her mom, and if they don't find a wealthy husband, then they will be in ruin. You know how it goes. And Gwen is just there to like have a good time. She doesn't really care about getting married. She lives with her father, so she's fine. But Gwen and Beth end up meeting, and then they realize that their parents had a past and that they used to be together, but then because of society they had to marry other people. So they decide to try to get their parents back together, kind of like The Parent Trap, I think, except they're not sisters. They're definitely not sisters, but I guess it's kind of like The Parent Trap. So they decide to try to get their parents together, and then in the meantime, they also kind of fall in love. So it is a sapphic romance, and I definitely enjoyed reading a sapphic Regency romance. I don't think there's many out there, but there was just nothing special about this book. It was very mid to me. I didn't super care about the characters. Honestly, I cared way more about the parent story than Beth and Gwen's story. And all like the conflicts that came up in the book just seemed very forced and just very random. So I just didn't care very much. I will say when Beth and Gwen like finally get together, I thought that scene was beautiful. I thought that was so well written, and it was just because it's like they never realized that they were attracted to girls in that way. So I thought that was beautiful and beautifully written. Everything else I just thought was very meh. I don't know. It was just okay. It was okay. And then I guess I guess this is the worst book I read this quarter. I mean, I guess I could count my DNF, which was, it's up there. Can you even see it? No, it's like over here. But it was How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. Is that what it's called? That's the book I DNF'd. That is like for sure the worst book I read, but I didn't finish it. So the worst book that I read and finished, I guess, but I don't think this is a bad book, but it was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. This just wasn't for me. I thought it was gonna be my perfect book because according to Kayla's spreadsheet, this is a favorite book among Pisces and Enneagram 6s, of which I am both. Does that make sense? I don't know. So scientifically, this should have been one of my favorite books, but it just wasn't for me. I found it a little too sexual and I also just didn't really quite understand what the point of it was. I feel like everyone knows what this is, but if you don't know, it is about a girl. I don't think we ever find out her name, but she is majorly depressed, whether she knows it or not, and she decides for a year she's just gonna take a lot of drugs and sleep the year away. And then she's like, after this year, I'm gonna be a new person. I'm gonna feel better. I will be ready to live my life, stuff like that. She is a very unlikable character. She treats the people in her life not very well. One thing that really bothered me about this book was that it's set in 2000 in New York City, and it takes place over the course of a year. So I feel like you know where this book is going, and then it gets there, and then the book ends. So I didn't really understand the point of having that in the book. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I think I gave it 2.25, something like that. I don't know. I'm happy I finally read it. I've owned it for a while, but it just didn't do anything for me. I don't know. So that's it for my quarterly wrap up. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite book you read in the last quarter was. And also if you want any additional stats in my next quarterly wrap up video, let me know that. Or if there's anything that I gave stats for and you don't care about, I guess you could let me know that too. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, if you watched till the end, what should we leave? Oh my god. Leave the rat emoji. Leave the rat emoji if you watched till the end, obviously. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Bye!